Look out a window, or picture any park, any garden, any tree on any street you have ever walked down. What you are seeing is so familiar that you have probably never stopped to question it. The leaves are green. Of course they are. Leaves are green. That is what leaves are. Except, and this is going to sound strange, leaves are not actually absorbing green light. They are throwing it away. The color that you have seen on every plant on every street of your entire life is not the color a leaf has chosen. It is the color a leaf has rejected. And once you understand why a plant would refuse the most abundant gift the sun has to offer, you start to see something else underneath it, a clue about a much older planet, one that we do not remember, but every tree still does. Chapter 1. What you're actually seeing. When you look at a leaf, you are not seeing what the leaf is. You are seeing what the leaf has rejected. Color, in physics, is what is left behind. A tomato is red because it absorbs every wavelength of visible light except red. The color you see is the color the tomato decided was useless. It is, in a sense, what the object is saying no to.
A leaf, then, when it appears green, is telling you something very specific. It is telling you that of all the colors in sunlight, red and orange and yellow and blue and violet, green is the one wavelength it refuses to use. For about 100 years, this has quietly bothered scientists. Because here is the strange part. Of all the wavelengths the sun gives us, the most abundant, the peak of sunlight that reaches the surface of the Earth, is right around the middle of the visible spectrum, right around green. The most reliable, most plentiful gift the sun is offering at any moment, on any day, on every patch of ground in our orbit, is green light, and every plant on Earth is throwing it away. Chapter 2. The Refusal. Inside every leaf are tiny green discs called chloroplasts. And inside the chloroplasts is a molecule called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is what does the work of photosynthesis. It catches photons of light and uses their energy to crack apart water molecules, build sugar, and ultimately make every molecule of food on the surface of this planet possible. Chlorophyll, it turns out, is unusually picky. It absorbs red light very efficiently. It absorbs blue light very efficiently. But green light, the most abundant wavelength bouncing off every leaf in every forest in every season, chlorophyll just doesn't take. It bounces off. It reflects back into your eyes. It is the part of the sun a leaf does not want. For decades, this looked like a design flaw. Several biologists wondered, in print, whether photosynthesis could just be made more efficient if plants would only learn to absorb green. Why would the most successful organism on the planet reject the most abundant fuel available? Then, in 2020, a team of physicists and biologists led by Nathaniel Gabor at UC Riverside, working with Krishna Neogi at Berkeley and Graham Fleming, published a paper in Science that finally explained it. The answer is that absorbing green light would not make plants more efficient. It would make them less stable. Sunlight is not a steady stream of light. Clouds pass. Wind shifts the leaves. The angle of the sun changes minute by minute. If a leaf were absorbing every wavelength equally, every flicker in the sky would translate into a violent surge of energy through its photosynthetic machinery. The cells would burn out. The chemistry would melt. But by ignoring the most powerful, most abundant wavelength, the one whose intensity changes the most when conditions shift, a plant turns its absorption curve into a kind of dam. It clips off the peaks. It accepts only the steadier, smaller wavelengths on either side of green. The result is an output that is much smoother, much more reliable, much less likely to be destroyed by a passing cloud or a sudden glare. In other words, plants are green, not because they cannot drink green light. They are green because drinking it would burn them out. The color of every leaf you have ever seen is, in part, an act of restraint, a refusal to take the biggest gift on offer in order to stay alive long enough to use the smaller ones. Chapter 3. The Older World. But there is a second part to this story, and it is the part almost nobody is taught in school. Chlorophyll did not have to absorb red and blue. There is no chemical law that says photosynthesis has to use those particular wavelengths. There are other pigments in other organisms that absorb completely different parts of the spectrum, which raises a question. Why did the molecule that became the foundation of nearly all plant life on this planet
happened to be the one that ignores green. In 2007, a microbiologist named Shiladitya Das Sarma proposed an answer that has since become known as the purple Earth hypothesis.
The idea is this. Long before chlorophyll-based life took over the planet, the earliest photosynthetic organisms on Earth may have been a different kind of microbe, a single-celled creature that used a pigment called retinal. Retinal does its work by absorbing the brightest, most abundant wavelength in the sun, green light, and the color a retinal-based creature reflects, the color it would appear to your eye, is purple. If Das Sarma is right, then for hundreds of millions of years, the photosynthetic surface of this planet was not green. It was purple. Mats of microbial life carpeting the warm seas, eating the green light, leaving the rest. When chlorophyll-based life later evolved, possibly inside cyanobacteria growing in the shadow of the purple mats, green light was already taken. The new arrivals had to specialize in what was left over, red and blue, the wavelengths the purple world had not yet claimed. The purple world has been gone for a very, very long time, but chlorophyll never updated its preferences. It still absorbs the wavelengths that were available to its earliest ancestors, and it still ignores the ones that were not, which means that every leaf you have ever seen, every blade of grass, every forest canopy on this planet is wearing the color it does for two reasons that almost nobody tells you about. It is the color a plant refuses, because absorbing it would destroy it. And it is, possibly, the color a much older kind of life used to keep for itself before chlorophyll ever existed. So the next time you walk past a tree in spring, the next time the sunlight comes through the leaves and you feel that specific, quiet calm that you have never been able to name, try noticing what you are actually looking at. You are looking at a refusal. Every leaf is a small no held against the sun, for the sake of staying alive long enough to feed everything else. You are also looking at a memory, a leftover from a kind of life that no longer exists, that the chlorophyll in those leaves has not been able to forget for more than 1 billion years. The whole living world that you walk through every day, the only color of nature you have ever known, is the color of restraint, layered over the color of inheritance. And nobody told you. They just said, leaves are green. Colors, cosmos, and curiosity around everything that makes our world what it is. That's what I am here to tell you every week. Twice. I'm Curio, and I will see you soon. Don't forget to share and subscribe.